Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm sorry this video is coming so late in the day, but I was really hoping there would be some sunshine in Ireland. But of course that's not a possibility ever. So I decided to just film this in the damn cold rainy day because it is very important that I post this video today. Why? Because I'm discussing I Call Myself a Feminist. Essays from 25 women under 30. I read this book in March as a part of the Feminist Orchestra Book Club. The Feminist Orchestra is a book club organized by Jean over at Jean Bookstadt. First of all, I'd like to talk about something that is very unimportant for most people, but it is very important to me, which is the edition itself. The cover and the spine are very nice and it comes in a floppy paperback, which I love. Listen to the sound. I really love that. And then you turn to the back and it seems almost like a school textbook that you have to read, which I understand they do have a lot of information to convey, like all the name of the participants and all, but I do feel like this could have been better designed. Let's talk about the content. First of all, these are 25 stories from women under 30 and it says they are essays, but they're clearly not. They're more like personal tales or personal stories. Seems like a mash of a more personal, heartfelt TED Talk and a personal storytelling BuzzFeed post, which isn't bad at all, it's just not essays. It's much more personal, informal, and in a way also relatable than that. As someone who has been a feminist for a very long time, this book didn't really present anything new that I didn't know before, that I hadn't heard before, but I do feel it is a good book for people who just recently identified with feminism, or for people who do believe in equality but are very afraid of the word. I'm not entirely sure this book is strong enough to be able to change someone's mind. Someone who is not a feminist would become a feminist because they read this book. I'm not sure the book is capable of doing that, but then again, that might be too much to ask of any book ever. It is a very hard job to change someone's mind. Still, in the end, I felt this was a very good book. I had a feeling of a campfire full of girls sharing their own personal stories. It was almost like talking with friends in a way, which made this reading very engaging and serves to reinforce the feminist inside me. One of my favorite things about the books that each text is intersected with some quotes from other feminist writers and actresses and comedians and people from all paths in life. And these quotes come from various sources. They are fiction, non-fiction, from more famous women to women I never heard of before, which was also great. I thought this was a very great list of women I should look into, and I even added a lot of these books to my TBR that I never heard of before, and now I'm very interested in reading. And not only these intersections, but the book as a whole is very diverse. They make an effort to include people from different ethnicities, from different cultural backgrounds. One particular aspect that I really enjoyed was how they included teenagers in this. I really wasn't expecting that, even though the book did say women under 30, that obviously should include teenagers. And as they themselves point out in their texts, often teens are excluded from the feminist talk and they shouldn't, and I'm really glad that they weren't excluded from the book because I did think their point of view was amazing. For example, one of my favorite texts from this was from a 16-year-old Nigerian girl called June Erikundori. Her text is called I Call Myself a Feminist. And even though she's very young, she's also very eloquent and very sure of herself. Even though her convictions go against her family, her cultural background, even her religion, she's still calling herself a feminist and she's still fighting for equality. And it really reminded me in a way of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. If you have not seen her TED Talk called We Should All Be Feminists, you should check it out right now. Links in the description. By the way, I do feel like a next step, if you're new into feminism and this was your first book about it, would be probably to go and see a playlist of TED Talks about feminism. They're usually very relatable and kind of short, so you only spend about 15 to 30 minutes. Another good step for people who are just getting into feminism and enjoy this book would be probably to seek out memoirs by feminists, even those that are quoted in the book themselves, like Tina Fey, Bossy Pants, or Amy Poehler's Yes Please, I think the level of engagement with the text will be similar. There were a few bad things that I have to point out about this book. The first one was the fact that all the biographies of the writers were at the end, which I guess from an editorial standpoint does make sense, but I wish they were integrated somehow into the text they were writing, because it really broke the flow, the fact that I'll have to go back and forth to see who was talking and what their background was if they didn't choose to disclose it. That might not be important to every reader, but it was important to me, and it kind of broke my rhythm a little bit. I also have to say that because these are very different women from different paths of lives, the style of writing is very different from each one, which is fine, but there are some essays that are very weak, especially the first three. Don't get me wrong, they are nice, they are entertaining, but they're not at the same level of the best ones, for example. So in the beginning I was reading this book and I was like, yeah, I kind of like it, but it's not amazing. But I have to say it gets better as you go along. There are many good points of view in this one, but I'm gonna talk about two of my favorite. The first one being Alice Strider's This Is Not a Feminist Rant, where she talks about sexist language and how embedded it is in our everyday use of language, and how that's something that we really should fight as feminists, because abuse works in a pyramid, and the base of the pyramid is sexist language. It is what supports and makes physical abuse possible. Another one of my favorite texts in this one was about acid violence in Pakistan, which was something that I knew existed but I had no idea was so common. It was written by Samira Shackle, and it talks about how acid crime is mostly a gender crime, especially in countries where women have less liberties like Pakistan. It's usually used by men against women, and what Samira points out is how this is actually a crime of erasing one's self-image, which is obviously a very sexist thing toward women, to erase who they are, to silence their voices. I also have to point out how many amazing women talked about intersectionality, which is something very important to be discussed in feminism. It means that certain women suffer more or different forms of discrimination. They are not sexist but do go hand in hand with it, such as transphobia, homophobia, racism, class discrimination, and those things intersect, and it is important to acknowledge that those women suffer a different kind of discrimination than the rest of us. Sometimes women of color or women from different social backgrounds have a hard time getting into feminism because that intersectionality is often excluded from the conversation. It makes feminism the white middle class feminism, which now in 2016 really shouldn't be the focus of the conversation, and I'm really glad to see that most of these women are concerned and are embracing different voices, and this book itself is a very diverse voice book. As a whole, again, I really like this book. It was a very quick and easy read. It wasn't mind-blowing, but it did serve to reinforce some of my point of views, and I do feel like you leave this book with a feeling of sisterhood, with a feeling of being reaffirmed into your feminism and wanting to fight for equality even harder. So that was I Call Myself a Feminist for the Feminist Orchestra Book Club. If you want to join the book club, I'll put the link to our Goodreads group down below. And next month we'll be reading A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. That was it. I'll see you soon. Bye!